There's been many times in my career where I've discovered that a man may be making more than I was in a similar role. And my best advice on this is to get your information together with respect to market compensation, your skill set, and why you think that you should be paid more and in line with that individual. And then approach your senior person that you work for with this information. You need to be armed. You need to be able to explain to them why they should reconsider your salary.
Always easier to have a discussion, with your manager. You set out your objectives for the year, and then you keep track of what you've been able to accomplish and how you accomplish those objectives.
Not only should women ask for what they want, but we should be creating environments and work environments where women are treated with respect when they ask for what they want. And that there isn't a difference between gender in your response to that asking. So I really encourage women to negotiate, even on my team. Even if I can't, I'm the one sitting in a power position and I can't necessarily give them what they want. I respect the negotiation, I respect the ask, and I always engage on it because I think it's so, so important. And I don't think women should be blamed for not asking enough. I think we all have a duty to create an environment where an ask from a woman is as respected as an ask from a man.
I think the most important thing you can do, first of all, is build proper processes within your organization so that you have experts on your compensation team who know how to do analysis around pay equity and comply with pay equity legislation in the first instance, but dig into the more complex issues around gender pay gap and what the root causes are of that. So first of all, having processes to analyze and look at your compensation processes are important. Having a strong talent team who participate in evaluation and compensation decisions, who are advising business leaders on these issues, who are at the table in performance discussions, listening and watching for unconscious bias. We've done training around unconscious bias, built that into our recruitment guides, and we're also starting to measure using some standardized metrics, things like gender pay gaps, and look at those and analyze them.
I really think that this starts with cultivating values within the organization and also tone from the top. I think, and then that trickles down to hiring practices, how you give out salaries and bonuses and titles. And for leaders in C-suite positions, we have this opportunity to change the conversation because we are involved in these practices. So making sure that we consider a diverse view and the impact that we're making when we bring on people into the organization.
This is on us as leaders to get to know every single person on our team. And it's up to us as leaders to take the initiative to do that. And I think that's really, really important in terms of really rising the bar and pulling everyone forward. Is treating and giving up the opportunity you would give to someone who's most like you to everyone on your team.
We put in place hiring practices that ensure that we have an equal number of female applicants, not just all male applicants in some roles. And if we don't get enough applicants, we in fact go out and look broader and ask our recruiting to go broader and cast a wider net so we get a better mix of diversity in our applicants.
There's an incredible awareness today amongst male leaders with respect to both gender advancement and gender pay equality and gender pay gaps. And I think that a lot of the reports that we're seeing, the articles in the paper, those have all really served an important purpose to shine a light on this. So I do think that male leaders are focused on this. The better ones are not shying away from the topic. They're diving in to learn and understand more, either through analysis and measurement, deep dives to explore things like unconscious bias in performance evaluation systems. They're open to setting targets and goals in terms of gender and other forms of diversity in senior leadership teams, and they don't shy away from holding themselves accountable or their teams accountable. So I think the only way that we close these gaps is if men and women leaders together are tackling these issues.
Young women in particular, and I find right now, and I've been doing this for a while, the young women who are coming up through the ranks right now are incredibly self-confident. They are so self-assured. Like, frankly, I've never seen that level of confidence and self-assuredness before. And with that comes a little bit of an edge. And so one of the best things to do is take these very bright, very confident young women and just give them like 2 or 3 little pushes in the right direction, and they just do phenomenally well. It's actually so impressive to see how well they do.
The higher up I've gotten in terms of title and the larger the team is that I manage, the more it just becomes so clear that it's a team conversation. And if I am not facilitating the growth and the empowerment of everybody on my team, I'm going to suffer.
And I did this by introducing things like allowing women to be promoted when they're working 4 days a week. That was unheard of prior to my coming on as leadership in the commercial bank.
So I try to be a change agent in a number of different ways, whether that's through community platforms in terms of driving fundraising and awareness around the progression of women and women that are in really sort of disadvantaged areas of our society, at an individual level in terms of mentoring and coaching and leading by example as a role model. From a positional perspective as a CEO, encouraging and setting goals and targets, committing my organization to some really important pledges and commitments like the Catalyst Accord or the Black North Initiative Pledge.
Also, really focusing on encouraging people to have work remotely, to have flexible working arrangements, and to ensure that they have the ability to try and balance both their career and their family.
Because the cannabis industry is a fairly nascent industry to Canada, legalization really only happened in the recreational space in 2018. It's our opportunity as women leaders to be able to change that narrative, whether it's diversity and inclusion, or whether it's creating a social good, social impact industry where we are not only thinking about our neighbors or Joe and Mary down the street, but we're really thinking about the community.
As a woman, and like many women, I'm sure, we have been in positions where we see other individuals coming into the company and getting promotions or getting roles ahead of yourself, even though you're sitting there with a lot of education, a lot of experience, and maybe the person that's coming in, being a man, doesn't have the same education, doesn't have the same experience, and doesn't have that same in-depth knowledge that you do, and you do see them getting promotions ahead of yourself. When you see countries like Iceland, who make it illegal for women and men to get paid different amounts for doing the same job, I think that if a lot of other countries started taking suit, like following that suit, then we'd be in a much better position. And the gap, although it is closing, it is not closing quickly enough.
I do think that there is just some fundamental unconscious biases that happen in that particular regard, but I do feel it's our responsibility, whether you're a male or a female, frankly, that we need to constantly be checking that men and women are actually, in fact, being paid equitable. And so it's something we do pretty much every other year, to have a look and make sure that just throughout the year, things just don't evolve, and then that gap grows and grows and grows. And I know for myself, even with just the quick checks that you do when you're looking at what you're paying people in bonuses, and you look at the men and you look at the women and you think about their, and that's very unscientific, but just kind of checking in as you're working through your business, as much as I do think you need a full-on audit on a regular basis. I don't think it's going away. I just think we continue to need to work at it.
My name is Crystal Gavancing, and I am your host for this evening. We've changed it up a little bit just to keep you all on your toes and all of us on our toes. I'm the Europe Bureau Chief for Global News, and this was going to be a Your Hour, Her Power event. It's going to be a little bit longer than just 1 hour, but that's okay. You know, we'll have plenty of time to chat. This event is incredibly special, and I'm thrilled to be able to take part and join you guys for a number of reasons. Number one, I hugely support Dress for Success Toronto. It's a charity that I've supported. I'm sure many of you who are joining our stream right now have dropped off a couple of outfits, and you know how important they are and what they can really mean. So, you know, the group does amazing work right across the GTA, and I'm so happy to sort of share and contribute my time. As many of you are kind of joining the group, you might see that I am in a different location. I'm actually coming to you from London, where I live now. It's about 11 o'clock at night, so a little bit later of an evening for me, but I'm excited to be here, and I'm glad that we are slowly bringing everyone onto the stream here. Tonight's presentation is hugely important, and as a part of the bigger call, of course, it's International Women's Day. It's a great day to kind of look at how far we've come and where we need to go, because we still, of course, there's still a lot of progress that is needed. But a part of the campaign tonight is to put out a call to ask you if you are willing, if you are able to donate 1 hour of pay to help a woman go and transition from unemployment to economic independence. And I think that's something we all know is hugely important, especially now in the pandemic, but just in general. So as we go through the evening's itinerary, you are able to click the link in the event description. I know at any point this month, and you can donate right through the entire month of March, at any point, if you want to tweet or email or even jump on Facebook and send a message to the Dress for Success team in Toronto, I know they will happily chat with you and take that donation. So it's a donation of 1 hour, just 1 hour of pay that will be life-changing, frankly, for a number of women. We are going to hear from a very special woman who has benefited from the program a little bit later. But a part of tonight's event, and we're moving it around a little bit, we are going to hear from a number of executives. There's 14 women in total who have agreed to share their expertise in some way or another. Many of you who are joining us have submitted questions, and we've taken those questions. They were really good questions, by the way, and put them to 9 different executives. These are women who are in the C-suite. They are experts in their field. They're everything from media and law and hospitality and finance, and even cannabis is in there as well. So a number of those individuals are going to be providing some really tangible advice, things that you are probably facing in the workplace right now. They have been through it. They have overcome it, and they can sort of give you those tips. But we're going to jump ahead and talk to our expert panel. Now, we have 4 women with us who are spectacular, and I'm so excited to be able to chat with these women, because they come from a variety of backgrounds, and they are truly the best in their field. And I'm sure she does not need an introduction. I've had a chance to chat with her at a previous Dress for Success event. So let me say hello to Marie Hennon. She is, of course, one of Canada's highest profile criminal lawyers. She is has her own law firm that she is a co-partner on. As well, we have Natasha Kaufman with us. She is president and founder of NKPR. Natasha is ready and waiting there. And I'm going to give everyone a little bit of a hint, and I'm also going to throw this out as a bit of a teaser / warning to Natasha. We talk a lot about women in the workplace and the things they might face. And Natasha may have a story that is literally written on her that she draws inspiration from to really, you know, take the leap of faith and jump. She's giving me the strangest look right now, but I hope she's going to be okay with me sharing the story.
Oh, I don't know what the story is. What's the give me a hint.
I'm going to ask you to tell me about some artwork that you have maybe on your body. That I think, yeah, okay. So that's an even better teaser, I think. Everyone's gonna be like, what are you talking about, Crystal? So that's Natasha, and you know, she has a fantastic story and also some great advice, because we often talk about work-life balance. So Natasha, we're going to talk about that because I think people will really benefit from hearing that experience. As well, we have Summer Hinton with us. She is Chief Operating Officer at BMO Capital and Markets. I think she is with us. I don't see her in my preview, but I understand she is there. And Kathy Cunningham is the Chief Financial Officer at the Globe and Mail. Okay, ladies, one of the things that we have to talk about, obviously, we're doing this virtually. We're not in a beautifully decorated ballroom having a sip of something bubbly and with each other because of the pandemic. So let's start in that space. Marie, I'm going to start with you. The last year that we've seen, what impact has it had on specifically on women from your perspective?
Well, I think there's been actually a lot written about it, and that is that it has had a disproportionately negative impact on women from a number of perspectives. Probably one of the most significant is employment, and it has had a disproportionate impact on racialized women. So the inequalities that we were aware of have only been exacerbated by the pandemic. Because of the difficulty people have had, not just losing their jobs, that's one thing, but even if you were fortunate enough to keep your job, the profound difficulty of working from home and having your children at home, no childcare. So it's been significant and in a detrimental way.
And it is, you talked a little bit about, it's been written quite a bit about, we hear also the phrase, the she-demic, that the women are feeling the pain more, because we also know that women spend more unpaid hours, whether that's caring for relatives or caring for children or just doing work that needs to be done at home. And that's sort of a part of the bigger picture. Kathy, are you with us? Are you able to jump in on that topic? I apologize that I'm not quite sure. I can't see her in the preview screen.
I am here. Thanks, Crystal.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that from your perspective. Is women are not only feeling the stress and the mental exhaustion of it all, but it is taking a toll financially.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you see that in all the statistics, as Marie referenced, that women are, 20% more likely to have income down from last year compared to men. And, I'm the accountant in the group, so I could give lots of numbers around this. I think there's the income, there's the extra load that Marie referenced, in education. And I won't share what I called my daughter at one point when I was trying to teach her math and she didn't think I was doing it correctly, right? Like it's been hard on everyone. And certainly I'm in a position of privilege relative to many. I think when you look at violence against women, that's certainly something that in Toronto and across the country, people are worried about, and just mental health in general, right? I see it with my teams. You hear more and more people speaking about the strain that has on women and their families. And of course, as caregivers, women tend to disproportionately bear that as well.
Yeah, that's something we've heard a lot about is, just the safety, that not everyone is safe at home. And that is a huge issue that people continue to talk about as an important one. Summer, I don't know if you are with us, Summer Hinton with BMO Capital Markets, but Summer, you have an interesting story in that, if I'm correct, the pandemic is when you sort of got into a new role and it's had sort of an interesting unfolding. Can you talk about that?
Sure, absolutely. I am here. Hopefully everyone can see me now. I just want to say this panel is the testament of real resilience and real innovation that now we've switched gears so quickly. So thanks, everyone.
It is what women do, right? Like we're having a problem. Okay, let's quickly get the answer to this. We got somewhere else. It may not be what was planned initially, but it's going to work and it's going to be great.
That's exactly right. Resilience and adaptability right here, right now. So maybe I will give just a tiny bit of context around my last year, just to humanize it, because I think all of us have gone through things in very different ways. So just to humanize it a little bit. So in the last year, This is now my third role in the last year. My longtime sponsor left the bank after a 10-year relationship. I went through some pretty tough health stuff myself, not COVID, thank the Lord, but tough health stuff. My husband lost his job, and now I got this role. So like, it was a long road over the last year to get to this point in time. And I would say it was really crazy starting a new job, especially a big job like this in the middle of a pandemic. So I would say that it was interesting. I'm really fortunate in that I have the support of my colleagues. I've got the support of my family and my husband. So that's been really, really great. But more than anything, I'm just struck every day at how much people are going through, and just the fact that we just have to keep going. Like, we all hear the statistics of women. Like, I think that Kathy just said women are earning 20% less on average this year as versus last year. We know that women are dropping out of the workforce at 4 times the rate of men. Not to mention like everyone that has lost their jobs and haven't dropped out, and there's just a lot that we're all going through. And I think more than anything, we're in hell. We got to keep going through hell, and we got to see ourselves to the other side. So, that's probably the most important thing I've learned, is just to keep going. But also, I'm really lucky in that I work for a leader, the CEO of Capital Markets, and he really believes in diversity. And he took a risk when he hired me, especially in the middle of a pandemic. We didn't get to meet in person before I started. We've conducted our entire relationship over Zoom, which is quite extraordinary when you think about the complexity of the roles that we have. So those are the 2 things I've learned, for what it's worth.
Summer, I want to stick with you for a minute, because I think there's probably a lot of women who are joining this event today who are sitting there going, yeah, I feel you. Like, I'm right there with you. Can you, from a perspective of, you have a solid background, your CV is impressive, and then you're sitting there in a situation and going, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do we do as a family?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Thank you for the question. And I think the reason I share is not to make people feel sorry for me, but because I do think it's really relatable in terms of just the crap that we're all going through. It's really hard to make trade-offs, decisions around like who's going to work and who's going to earn the income in order to pay the mortgage. So it's hard. Everyone has to make their own individual choice. I say that though, and that's kind of a shallow thing to say, because we know that women are dropping out at 4 times the rate of men. And it's quite odd that in general, women are making the same choice to drop out versus men. So I don't know what to say to that, other than I got really lucky, and it is pure good fortune to have the husband that I do.
Supports play a huge role in whether that's a husband or a mentor or a family member, or just a fantastic executive on a charity event, now Zoom call. That's really what it comes down to, is having people that you can call and say, what do I do? We have 4 amazing women to ask that very question to. So Natasha, I want to bring you in on this, because, in the wake of the pandemic, you deal in, public relations and social media, and your industry is incredibly interesting. And what has it been like? What lessons have you learned during the pandemic?
Well, I think one of the big lessons is actually to be as positive as you can. Nobody, when the pandemic hit, we didn't quite know, nobody knew what was going to happen. And even now, like, we see a light at the end of the tunnel, but there's so much uncertainty. So I felt that it was really important that I was able to instill as much confidence and security in my team as well as our clients, because otherwise, when you panic, you come from a place of fear as opposed to coming from a place of like really sort of thinking about what is it that we need to do now in order to be able to progress. So I found, just being in the industry, we needed to pivot quickly, and we needed to ensure that we were instilling a sense of confidence both internally and externally. And I felt that really helped, to make an impact and a difference. And it allowed our clients to really feel like they had a partner at the table that will help them navigate through these, uncertain and unprecedented times, because everybody was panicking, and that's certainly not what you wanted in your, PR partner. But just to add to what everyone was saying, I think it's also an interesting time for women right now, because I can tell you as an entrepreneur, I never really thought that it was possible to work from home and work in the office. I always thought that, like, we've had a few people go on mat leave. Now I feel there's this opportunity to, they could come back early, they could come back, later, they can work from home, they can work from the office. There's a flexibility that I didn't necessarily think possible 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or even before COVID. After COVID, you recognize and you realize that you can be as efficient, as effective, whether you're working from home or whether you're working in the office. So I'm hoping this also opens up some opportunities for women that want to be able to work from home and have that flexibility, but still be working at the same time.
Well, the fact that I'm coming to you guys and having this conversation with you over the internet from my home in London is a really good example of, space has changed because of this pandemic. Kathy, I saw you nodding along at some point here when we're talking about, it has been hard, but there may be some benefits, some opportunities that's been created because we've been forced to do things differently.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I think there's a lot of leaders waking up to the fact that remote work, that work from home can actually work, and that's going to open lots of opportunities for people. I had a young racialized woman say to me that she thinks the most exciting part of this is that she's not going to have to deal with any of the social stuff anymore. That not having to worry about the after work drinks or whatever that entailed. For her, this is really giving her breathing room to sort of demonstrate her expertise at work, on the job, in sort of more formal settings. And it relieves that pressure, which I thought was quite interesting. Like, I'm really missing the informal sort of coffee. I started my role at the Globe and Mail in the pandemic as well. And so I haven't had a chance to see the newsroom in action or be at the coffee maker or whatever. And so I miss that. But it's interesting when you think of sort of intersectional issues that come up with those kinds of conversations that I take for granted being able to have and participate in, and it actually helps my career, whereas other people actually view those with some fear. And so, well, I love the idea of the optimism that Natasha spoke with, and certainly would echo that. I also think it's interesting to think about the barriers that this is removing and how we can maintain them.
Okay, so we know things are changing and they're changing at a rapid pace, and people are losing jobs and starting new jobs, and then there's of course this whole idea of we have to earn money, and the pay gap is still an issue. We saw that in the Globe and Mail. There was a great piece sort of laying that all out. We're gonna dive into a question that I've gone to my mentors about previously. I know young people have come to me and said, what do I do? And even to this day, my friends who are also foreign correspondents, we talk and go, can I ask? Can I do this? We're going to talk money. How do you guys started new jobs in a pandemic? How do you negotiate? How do you get a fair wage and have this idea of, well, the boss voice in my head says, well, Crystal, it's a pandemic and we used to be happy you have a job. How do we make sure we are compensated for our skills? Kathy, you're still up, so I'm going to start with you.
Oh, goodness. I was sort of hoping to learn from the others and you, Crystal, on this one. There's lots of research out there that says when women advocate for themselves from a compensation perspective, it's viewed quite negatively. So we're told to advocate and be aggressive, but then suddenly you swing too far and you're bossy, and so it really doesn't work. I mean, I think there's lots of information out there about how we start to remove the pay gap. And a lot of it has to do with not having blind information going in so that employers actually can't differentiate and sort of lowball certain people depending on where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, it's really important that as an individual, you know your worth and you understand the marketplace. And so that when you're hearing what the numbers are that people are offering you, you can put that in a perspective and assess whether it's enough for you. I mean, money is not for many people going to be the be all and end all, but we need to pay the mortgage, right? As Summer said. And so making sure that, like I said, you know that market and that you're within that range, I think is an important thing for each of us to do for ourselves.
Marie, I'm going to bring you in here because you're sort of, in my view, the woman who has embraced and has completely taken and owned her power. Not only are you a force in the courtroom, but you are known throughout Canada and even into the US, because I know you practice further than just Canada, but you are seen as that one who, walks into a room and everyone pays attention because damn, she's smart. How do you advocate for yourself? What do you suggest?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I've never thought of having to advocate for myself, and maybe I have lived in a bit of a delusional bubble, but it's a delusional bubble that's been profoundly helpful to me. And that is because I always understood what my value was. I didn't think that was a question. So it wasn't really for me as much a question of advocating and convincing somebody, but really demonstrating what I was bringing to the table, what my value was, what my knowledge base was. You're only as good as your last case and your last matter. So I always thought that if I walked into a room, that the best way to convince anyone of anything is to show them and remind them over and over and over again. So that for me has always been the perspective was I didn't need to convince, I needed to demonstrate.
Have you come up against the idea of, men not getting along with you in the workplace or having that uncomfortableness? We heard the word aggressive and bossy. It's probably no surprise to anyone that I have been called those words before, but I don't necessarily think they're negative. I just, choose to replace those words with other words like driven and competent.
Yeah, I had those experiences and really somewhat demoralizing actually when I was much younger. And I can tell you that it was as far back as elementary school that I had a male teacher pull me aside and say, "You're too aggressive," because I'd made the class president cry. And that was true in high school, where I had, again, a male teacher pull me aside and say, "You're too assertive, and that's going to be a problem." When I got into this profession, my profession, I was very lucky to land in a place that did not try to remake or remold and took me at face value and saw that as an asset. So I wasn't really confronted with that issue that you're too aggressive. And we're in a business where you do have to be assertive and self-confident. And so I really wasn't faced with that. It had been something that I had been faced with as a young woman. And I think young women in particular who have yet to grow into their own skin are constantly pushed down and pushed back and told how they have to be and act and speak and too aggressive or not aggressive enough. And that's where I found it challenging and where I still think that it is a challenge for young women because I will push back. I don't have an issue with it and, I'm settled. And I think you see those liberties often being taken by men with respect to young women. It's this desire to assert power and control. And one of them is by minimizing what you're doing.
And then that is a challenge because, of course, it's, do you stand up for yourself? Are there ramifications for that? Summer, I noticed you kind of nodding along there. Have you had any experiences where you've kind of like Marie, maybe it was a while ago, but sort of had to look at the situation and go, wait a second, I know my worth. Oh, you're just on mute, Summer. Can I unmute? Oh, there we go.
I am unmuted now. All right, I'll fix it. Yeah, so the comments that Marie was making really, really resonate with me. I grew up, spent the formative years of my career in a hedge fund and then on a trading floor, which is, to this day, it's still quite male dominated, although certainly less so than it used to be. And I would say that I was, confronted with two possibilities. One was to, conform and fit the mold of the nice girl that does the nice things and says the nice things, or behave as a man and play by the men's rules. And I would say, I look back and I go, God, that is not fair that I had to make that choice. And it's my job to make sure other women don't have to make that choice to have to fit in one of two boxes. I think that the most important thing that young women can do and that we can do for them is to give them optionality and appreciate the skills and talents that they have without forcing them to fit in one box or another. Would I have turned out differently? I don't know, because I've been quite happy with my path. And I think I probably would have chosen to walk that way anyway, but it would have been a lot easier to have had the free will to know I would have been welcome and embraced either way. So I fully appreciate what Marie was saying.
And I think it's something, like you said, you it resonated with you, because I think everyone at some point sits there and goes, and that the language too is so universal. It's the, do I play nice? Am I that nice lady, or am I that the pain, the one that's always causing a problem? But we all get into positions because your stuff, and as Marie has said, didn't really come to that because she demonstrated it, and demonstration is one way to do it. Natasha, I'm going to bring you in here because we hear advice all the time. Be vulnerable, be strong, be this, be that. What advice is just garbage that you want to say, get out of there? Don't listen to that, please. If we can just stop telling women this thing, what would that thing be? And just you're unmuted. Perfect.
That's a really good question. I'm going to hold on that for 1 second, sort of go back to that last conversation a little bit, because I remember having a client years ago where the man had actually said to me, I don't pay you to think, I pay you to do. And I remember at the time thinking, what do I do with this? And the next day we ended up walking away from the business. And so what that taught me is that we do own our own power. We do control how we react. We control with what we do with something like that. Because I felt that when we walked away from that account, and it was significant, that was a situation I knew I would never ever get back into. Because there were always signs, clients like that tend to behave badly always, and you sort of excuse it until something like that happens. And so I think that's a lesson, that don't excuse bad behavior from the beginning. You kind of see the signs and then just, don't take it on, and understand that it's not there. I think that to answer your question, I don't know. I'm like one of those people that believes in be kind and be brave. And, I think that's one of the things that you were talking about before about my tattoo, because I actually have a tattoo on my forearm that says be brave. And it is a constant reminder for me to make those brave decisions. And that was one of them, actually, to make that brave decision of you walk away and it actually makes room for something more positive. And that is always the case. Leaving something bad behind leaves room for something good. And I think we need to remember that you need to make space for the good things.
The tattoo is exactly what I was going to ask you about with the be brave there. Marie, you're up, and I'm wondering if you want to jump in there. Yeah. Do you have a be brave tattoo?
No, I have many actually, but not be brave. Mine actually says, life isn't built on wishes, it must be taken by force. So that is, I love it. That's my, it's an Arabic saying. But what I wanted to just go back to, because it was something that all the speakers touched on, and I think, again, it's really important to emphasize for young women, that, we are often sold a real bill of goods, because the paradigms of how you're supposed to behave, what you're supposed to look like, what your voice is supposed to be, whether you're being too aggressive or too soft-spoken, is all about molding and directing and shaking your confidence in yourself, and trying to throw you off your game. And, it is a thing that women, through time immemorial, through literature, are subjected to these, that there really are two diametrically opposed ways we can be. And I think that is a very negative message and very wrong. And it stifles women from being and growing into their own skin and being who they are. And so just going back to some of the things that were said, you know, being told you're too aggressive, or being told you're too quiet when you speak, or you're too kind, or you're not kind enough. You are allowed to come in all shapes and sizes. And the only person I think you ever have to account to is yourself. And I know it is hard to resist when everyone is telling you how to be and how to look and what to say and what you should do. But it is important to resist it because it throws you off your game. And we are allowed to come in a variety of different ways and personalities, and they're all valuable and they can all be super successful. There isn't just one road.
Kathy, what about you? Any tattoos that we should know about and live by?
So no tattoos. I wimped out. I was going to get a flower with 5 petals, which was an Aztec symbol of feminine power. But I don't know. I never did quite get to that. I love this discussion about people being able to bring their whole selves, their authentic selves to work. And I think, you know, the exciting thing about right now is with the focus on diversity and inclusion, there really is a recognition that it is, well, first of all, organizations are more successful when they take advantage of that diversity. And so this notion that we all had to conform into the good girl or the bad girl or the smart girl or the girl who got a boyfriend, you know, it's the Dorothy Parker, boys don't make passes at girls who wear glasses. Like those things are gone. And I need my big, thick frame glasses now, right, to be cool. Anyways, I think there's a book Sally Krawcheck wrote. She's a US, she's CEO of her own investment fund now, and it's called Own It. And I saw her speak a few years ago, and she talked about spending years trying to fit in with all the investment bankers it was Smith Barney, I think, that she was at. And now you see her, and she is fully herself, just like we see Marie and Natasha and Summer and she's owning, just to that point, her power. And because she's able to be her own self, she brings that thinking and is actually building a business that's doing something different because she's not stifled into a corner. So, you know, I think all of us working in companies, they'll be more successful if we can be our whole selves. It also means we need to support other women, other people to allow them to do that.
And I think that's a part of it, because there was, at least at some point, a time where you would hear other women not necessarily trying to lift up other women and bring them, you know, along with them to, you know, see them in you know, the C-suites and see them on that senior management team and you know, even more so if it is a person of color. So what do we need to do to have women supporting women?
Yeah, so I think that, so first of all, I'm not sure how much of that was missed and created to sort of almost create the antagonism amongst women.
Good point, yeah.
Time, though, where an organization needed to have one woman or have one Black person or person of color at a table. And so you were there elbows out to be that one person, right? And that meant you had to sort of defeat the others. I mean, I think the good news is most organizations aren't looking at that now, don't want only one, they want the diversity at the table. And so really, we have the room and the space to you know, is that expression about one hand as you're climbing and one hand reaching down to bring someone up with you is incredibly important. And I see women doing that everywhere. And you can see it with the people here wanting to be here to support and help others.
And just as we kind of talk a little bit about that, I just want to give a reminder to everybody who is now watching. This is sort of your hour has been extended. It's a loose definition of what an hour is. So your hour, her power. And as a part of this event, we're putting out the call and asking people to donate 1 hour of their wage to help a woman go from unemployment to economic independence to get them to that position. And I think that's one of the reasons why Dress for Success is incredibly popular and so successful, is because it sees, that one group helping the next group, and the benefits we all have from that. And in the chats, I know that the link just did go up, and you can donate that hour of pay anytime throughout the month of March. So it's not just a International Women's Day benefit here. So I encourage anybody to look at that event link. Let's talk a little bit about mentorship. Because I remember being told you have to find a mentor, you have to make them agree to be your mentor, and then you have to meet with them all the time. But I also realized as I talked to more men about mentors is that it didn't need to be this really formal, agreed to, like, are we going steady situation. You're up right now, Kathy, so I'll throw that to you first of all. Define for me mentorship and how we get it.
That's a big question. So to me, as a mentee, it was anyone who was willing to sort of help me learn, whether it was to navigate sort of the organization I was in, to learn technical skills, to kick my butt, right? When I was doing something wrong, someone who would be honest and transparent with me that I needed to change something, because we all need people who are, willing to be that honest. And I'm with you. I think this idea of it being this formal relationship, I think sometimes those work, right? Some organizations have mentoring programs. Globe and Mail has one. I've just been matched up with someone and she's amazing, and I'm going to learn as much from her as she might learn from me. But I think just if I think of mentoring as much as networking and getting out there and just learning from as many people as I can. And for some people, I'll go back for that second date or third date. And for others, once will be enough. But going steady is a big commitment, right? You better be careful.
And I found it scares people off. Natasha, you have this great smile, and I can see it right here. So let's bring you into this conversation. Mentorships. How do you support other women, and what advice do you have? Do they need a formal person, or do you just find that person that you're like, she's really successful and cool, and I think she could help me out?
Yeah, I do a lot of mentoring, and many people just reach out to me on social media. And so I think that's a really, especially for young people, a great way to be able to connect with an industry or a person in an industry that they want to learn about. And so I highly and strongly encourage young people to be able to reach out to individuals on social media, because it doesn't have to be a marriage. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go steady, but if you can provide some inspiration or some advice to a young person that helps them navigate, through their career a little bit, and that might be once, that might be twice, that might be, something more permanent, I think it's really helpful. But I think the other thing is that we need to remember and acknowledge the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, because, mentoring someone, I think is super valuable, but sponsoring them means that you're actually advocating for them and there's an action to it. And I think as women, we need to do more of that. And I think for young people to know that that's possible, like I think of my own company, and I think we have this opportunity that, some of my staff might be with me for a long time, some might not be with me for a long time, but for young people to understand that there is this opportunity for me to open doors for them outside of the company, because I'm happy to do that. But I think there's always this fear with young people that that's not how it's done. But as women, we are here to support each other. And that's not just lip service. That truly is, if it's not how it is, it's how it should be. And so I think there's this opportunity to make sure that we're actually helping to open those doors and helping to sponsor people more by advocating for them.
I know one of the reasons that, I get so much out of, taking part of the events for Dress for Success Toronto was because I get to meet people like you and Summer and Kathy and Marie and go, okay, wait, it's not a one-off. There are so many really brilliant women who are around and available and willing. Marie, let's pull you into this conversation, because I know that you do a lot of work, and you are quite accessible, which, might surprise people. Tell me about your, did you have somebody that encouraged you along the way? Did that help sort of, put it in your mind that you wanted to give back in that way?
Well, I mean, I didn't know much about the profession. There were no lawyers in my family, and that was actually something that I wandered in and sort of did stuff by happenstance. So it would have been great if there was somebody who could have mentored me along the way. I agree with everything that has been discussed up to this point in terms of mentors. I didn't have one mentor. I didn't have somebody who thought it was their job to usher me through my career at all. I had different people that I went to for advice and different people that I learned from along the way, depending on what it was that I was interested in, whether it was how you run a business or how you advocate. I mean, there's a wide variety of people in my life that I have looked to for advice and for guidance, but I wouldn't say that there was one single person, with the exception, of course, of my mother, who has always been my biggest supporter, and the one person that whenever I'm feeling a little defeated pushes me right back up. But other than that, I've always had a variety of people.
That's fantastic. And I think mums are interesting, because I think a lot of, I've heard some great mum stories, and I'm liking more and more of them. My mum was one of those women who was incredibly tough, like the tiniest little woman, like very short and just petite. But she was always able, as we heard before, someone telling you, hey, you're really dropping the ball on this. Or what are you doing? This isn't you. Be you. Like, go into that room and be you and shine. And you don't need to take a backseat to anybody. And I think, those messages are so incredibly important to share and to get out there. One of the things that we talk a little bit about, but I do think, we need to talk more about is failing. Because, social media is mostly successes. We like to tell and brag about our successes, but I also find that in failure is a lesson, and it's a part of the path. You don't really fail though, Marie, because you win all the time.
No, I just don't care about it. I don't have a fear of it. That's the bigger lesson for me, is that if you don't give it a shot, and of course, there's always a risk of failure, you're never going to succeed either. And so the failure piece for me has never been a significant factor, because to me, it didn't diminish me. If I wasn't successful at one thing, I could be successful at something else. So it just hasn't been a thing that has been a focus for me, because I think it would have been limiting. I would have been afraid to do many things for fear of failure. But I opened up my office with no clients and no money and a kid and a new house and no idea how I was going to afford it. And my view was, well, if I failed, I gave it a shot, and so I might be down a house. I'll get up again and I'll try again. So it's not something that I like to spend a whole lot of time thinking about.
So it kind of goes to that, Natasha's be brave. Summer, you are just smiling through this. Jump on in here and tell me what's going through your head. Failure, just don't fear it. Is that the message? Oh, no.
Okay.
There we go.
Now I'm here. I'm smiling because I wish we were all together in person, because there are so many things that I would love to ask and talk about offline with these women, with the four of you. So that's one of the reasons I'm smiling. I'm also smiling because, to Marie's point, there's just so few things in life that are truly life or death, and this is now my third career. I started in biotech, then I was a software developer. Now I'm a banker. I'm planning on having a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth after this. If one thing doesn't work, what's the worst that happens? you pick up and do something else. You know, I think that if anything, what we can teach, and maybe this is something they teach us as well around risk taking, is just take more risk. Understand the risk you're taking and then just leap. There are very few things that will really turn out that badly. Failure is not much to be afraid of, but looking back on a life where you didn't try things you wanted to try, that feels like it would be incredibly disappointing to me. So that's probably the biggest piece of advice I would have. And when I think about mentoring relationships, like, and all the important mentors I've had, they've all pushed me in exactly that way to say, come on, why wouldn't you do this? That's crazy not to. Just give it a shot.
Give it a shot. Yeah, and you're right. It was described to me a safety zone versus the comfort zone. Like, is this choice going to kill you? No, then it terrifies you. That means you should do it. Kathy, jump in here, because you were also just like, yes.
Well, so I knew you would all inspire me, and I'm not at all surprised to hear this. I'm not as brave. I think it's amazing just to be willing to get out there. But I think not everyone's going to be that brave every time. And when you do fail, it can really cause you to, or it's caused me to really come back, and it can shake your confidence and stuff. I did a panel once though or an interview with, it was the chairman of the board of one of the big financial institutions in Canada. And one of my questions for him, which he had received in advance, was, give us an example of a time you failed so that we can all learn from it. It was on International Women's Day. And he said, oh, I've never failed at anything. And then he went on to tell a story about meeting Nelson Mandela and blah, blah, blah. And it was this incredible moment. But there was such a lesson in that for me, because it's hard to fathom that he didn't fail once in his 50-year career or whatever at that point. But as he looked back on his life, all of those were viewed as learnings or sort of just a small sidestep on his way to success. And it does help one, just as Summer said, there's very few things, like, I'm not a brain surgeon. There's no life and death here. And so trying to put the failures, because they can hurt when they happen, in perspective can be really helpful.
The hurt, I think, is the thing that we're most afraid of, like that fatal ego blow.
Yeah,
Natasha, we kind of started this with you and your tattoo to be brave, but I'm setting this up because we are going to meet a young woman, Sabrina, shortly here, who has been incredibly brave and is going to share her story, and that very much that story of risk, do it, jump, don't stand still. You haven't stood still at all, Natasha.
No, I very much feel that when I get that feeling, and I remember this when I was a really young mom. I was 18 when I had my son and moved to New York in my early 20s with a baby. It was just such a crazy time. But I remember back then, anytime I felt that sense of fear was exactly when I needed to take the leap, because fear sort of manifests into growth. And I've never really felt that. I've never, similar to Marie, like, I've never thought about failure, because I always just think that it's a key learning. It might not go the way I thought, but the learning was invaluable. And so I always, that's why I have the tattoo that says be brave, because it's like, whenever you feel that sense of fear, you actually have to leap forward, not backward, and not stand still. And that was a lesson I learned, when I was really young, and I just keep doing that. So anytime I feel that, I just move forward, work through it.
Knew that chatting with the four of you was going to be absolutely amazing. I was so excited when I saw the names in the panel of Marie, Summer, Kathy, Natasha. Thank you so much. This isn't by any stretch over. I'm just now going to throw it over to Sabrina, our Dress for Success Toronto client, because I'm really excited for you guys to hear her story. Sabrina, I'm going to let you unmute yourself and jump into this and tell us all about you, because one of my favorite parts of these events is hearing from the client. So Sabrina, if you are there, I'm going to let you jump in.
Yep, I'm here. Hi, thank you for having me. As Crystal said, I'm Sabrina, and I've been a client of Dress for Success for a year. And this journey began back in 2018. That year was the hardest year of my life, as I lost my parent, my dad. He wasn't just my parent, but also my best friend and rock my entire life. Losing him still is the hardest thing I've ever gone through. It impacted all aspects of my life. Unfortunately, my workplace weren't supportive of my mental health, so I felt I had no choice but to leave. The situation left me feeling unconfident and devalued, like no one would want me as an employee. This, on top of grieving from the loss of my dad, was really overwhelming, and I was struggling. I decided to take some time off to process and heal, which became a beautiful self-discovery journey. Afterwards, I was more at peace, but professionally, I was still struggling. I'd lost my confidence and lost sight of my professional value. Fall of 2019, I felt was the time to do something about it, so did a back to work program through Employment Ontario. It helped me start to find my feet again. However, I was still feeling unconfident. The thought of doing an interview was overwhelming as I didn't own a lot of professional clothing. I was intimidated about even applying for jobs, feeling like I wasn't on the same level as other applicants. Thankfully, at the end of the program, I was referred to Dress for Success Toronto, and it was the first step I needed. Before going into my suiting appointment, I was nervous as I didn't know what to expect. But as soon as I got there, the atmosphere was so positive and supportive. The staff were all so welcoming, and I quickly felt comfortable. My stylist, Lynn, was lovely. She was so helpful and supportive, like my own personal cheerleader. And as I looked around, I could hear the other stylists with their clients be their cheerleader, and it was genuinely moving. It was such an empowering experience. It really made me feel my courage again, being surrounded by these amazing women. I left with some really great pieces too, like this one. I started a new job shortly after and felt much more confident going in, especially after that experience. Just a few weeks into my job though, COVID hit and everything turned upside down. Unfortunately, I lost my job again and I was unemployed again. I didn't know what to do with myself as I built up so much momentum and energy into going back to work, then losing my job so suddenly. My anxiety and depression was high, but I managed. However, it was like I was in survival mode and I could only stay at surge capacity for so long. Slowly, everything I worked for felt defeated and it hit me hard. There were days where I didn't want to get out of bed. It's like I went one step forward and two steps back. At the same time, Dress for Success started to do webinars and virtual workshops, and it was great. It gave me a reason to stay motivated and get out of bed. It helped me build on my skills, take care of my well-being, introduced me to so many new resources, networks, and mentorships, and brought together a community of women just like me. More and more, it gave me my drive back, my direction, and my confidence back. Currently, I'm still job hunting, but with much more confidence and security in myself and my value. Now I'm just looking for the right opportunity. I want to thank you for your time and thank you, Dress for Success. It's such a great organization, empowering women from all walks and experiences of life. They not only accept and empower every woman for who she is, but also advocate for their progress. I'm so grateful to be part of such a lovely community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing. That was fantastic. There's always that lump in the throat moment where I'm like, when I unmute myself, am I going to be able to speak? I'm okay. Yes, Sabrina, thank you so much. I want to, we're trying to wrap this up because we're so grateful that everyone stuck with us through this event. But I want to, and there's so many people that we didn't get a chance to thank, but I want to bring in Harriet Goodman because she is, of course, the chair of Dress for Success Toronto. Harriet.
Thank you, Crystal, and thank you, Sabrina. Crystal, thank you for moderating this little bit of a crazy ride this evening. We really appreciate the support that you've given us. We know that your time is valuable and we appreciate it. We also know that you are 5 hours ahead of us, so you are truly burning the midnight oil. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in twice. And welcome to International Women's Day. It's no secret that this has been a very unique and challenging year. We have all faced hardships, increased workloads, and have been separated from loved ones since this time last year. The effects of the pandemic are felt across the globe, and the progress women had made in job advancement has spiraled downward in this last year. This pandemic has diminished women's employment rates down to its lowest level since the 1980s. After having one of the lowest unemployment rates in history just months ago, Toronto and the GTA now have the highest unemployment rate in the entire country. With job losses concentrated among women, we are facing the first global female recession, aptly coined the she-cession, as decades of economic progress for women unravels. This year, more than ever, we need your support. It is with great pleasure that I turn this over to Kate Green, our Executive Director for Dress for Success Toronto, to share with you the progress we are making and the impact our organization has on empowering the women in our organization and community. Take it over, Kate.
Thank you so much, Harriet. And thank you so much to everybody on the call and bearing with our technical difficulties today. We are so grateful that you're here with us today and that you're continuing to share your support for us and stick around with us. You know, hearing the panel discussion and hearing everybody's conversation, I hope is motivating and inspiring, and everybody is taking a lot away from this conversation, especially on International Women's Day. I want to give a special thank you to our 4 panelists for their invaluable and treasured insights: Marie, Natasha, Summer, Kathy, and of course to Crystal. And I couldn't leave you without saying a huge thank you to Sabrina for sharing your story. You know, we wish you all the continued success, and we are here for you. Throughout 2020, Dress for Success Toronto has seen many pivots, just like we had to be a little agile tonight. We've had to be agile through the year, so we've got a little bit of practice here. You know, we went from 100% virtual programming to completely virtual programming in a matter of weeks, and everywhere in between throughout 2020. You know, we saw our career learning programs double last year, and since 2009, we've served over 15,000 women. We are so grateful, and we couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much. Tonight, before we close out, I just want to leave you with a brief video that we had prepared in our previous link that had a lot of the women sharing their tips and their wisdom and some learnings for all of you. So all the women who supported our campaign jumped on what we're calling our Ask Me Anything and answered your questions. So to close out tonight, we're going to be playing that video. And I also want to share with you that we are going to put all of this together and prepare it for you as we had originally planned. And we're going to send it out to you tomorrow through your emails. So once again, thank you. And thank you, Crystal. And thank you to our panelists for being so flexible and agile. And we really had a wonderful evening. And we hope that you took away some learnings and some inspiration from the leaders that we spoke with tonight. So with that, we're going to launch our video.
Something really needs to give. You can no longer be perfect at everything. You need to pick out what is important to you and focus on those moments.
When I first had children, I think I went through what so many mothers go through, which is the sense of your life completely changes and you have to completely change your expectations around your time and how your time is spent. And for a long time, I tried to figure out the formula. Okay, well, how many hours do I spend on work? How many hours do I spend with my kids, working out, cooking dinner? Like, I wanted to schedule everything so I could find the right answer and then just stick to that. And unfortunately, I realized pretty quickly that that's impossible.
Having a career and being a mother is a real challenge. And after 30 years of working, I can tell you the guilt never goes away. But you can learn to manage that. And I think by making sure that you take time for your family, at the same time, having them understand your career goals and what you're trying to achieve is really important.
Having a mentor is really important, and it's certainly not something to be taken lightly. The advice that I would give young females, or actually anyone as they advance in their career, is to be deliberate about mentor-mentee relationships. So don't just assume that you have that relationship with someone you consider a mentor. Vocalize it and sort of formalize it, just in making sure that your mentor understands that you're using them as a mentor.
The advice I always give to women around mentoring is to be very purposeful in terms of what they want to get out of that mentoring relationship. So if there's a woman that they would like to, or a man that they would like to establish a relationship with, really think about why that is. Is there an aspect to that person's career trajectory, or their role, or their leadership style, or their specific technical knowledge? What is it about the individual you'd like a mentoring relationship with that is going to benefit you as the mentee? And then establish a relationship on that grounding, making sure that the mentor understands why it is you're seeking them out to be a mentor.
Men and women can 100% be great mentors to one another. I actually think that this is really needed to be able to achieve gender equality. I think men need to be included in the conversation and to be able to help advocate for women, and the other way around. And that way you get a diverse opinion and advice and advocacy from both female and male counterparts.
I think the worst advice you can ever give a female is that they should act more like a male. I actually fundamentally believe women should act like women. I think we have phenomenal qualities. I think that we bring a lot to the table in terms of our strengths. I think they are different than men's strengths, but I actually believe that that is something that's very much needed in the boardroom. And so for me, it's just act like yourself, be yourself, bring your true self, your authentic self to work, and don't try and be anybody else, because it's really important. I think for your success, in order to really, truly, you can't be somebody else. You have to be yourself if you want to succeed.
I would tell my younger self, don't accept I can't, because you can absolutely do this.
My advice for my younger self would be forgiveness, not permission. And so I look back and I would say, be bold, put your hand up, don't sit on the sidelines waiting for someone to come and find you. Don't be worried about making mistakes. We all do, but take hold of your career and go out and get it. Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
I would tell myself to take more risks. And I do think that, through my own sort of personal experience, and, as I kind of look back at my career, I really believe that, women tend to wait till they know like 90% of a role before they apply for it, where I do think that men will go in, knowing maybe 50% of that role. And I think that definitely I encourage people to take risks and really take chances and do things that they feel uncomfortable doing. And I do that even today, as I try different things and do things that I don't necessarily feel totally comfortable with, but I push myself, and I think that allows you to really grow and develop.
Just kind of relax, enjoy it, and do your job, obviously, but take the time to actually truly enjoy it. And I'll call it smell the roses along the way, versus and a lot of women do this. We're like, whoop, very, very focused and kind of miss what's going on around us.
I always try to lift up female leaders in the organization by, one, celebrating their successes and celebrating their wins. Number two is really encouraging them to network with other women in the industry themselves. So if I have an opportunity to bring them along, I always invite them along with me. And lastly, it's really about giving them the opportunity to be highlighted as well. I think, for example, Dress for Success, you guys reached out to me and gave me the opportunity to talk about my journey and my experience, and I'm really grateful for that. And that is what I'd like to continue to pass on to fellow female leaders in my company.
The C-suite was not always my goal in my career. Throughout my career, there was many times that I thought about making the decision to pull back, to stay home with my family. And then I found a way to be able to manage both. And I think it's really important that you understand throughout your life, you go through different times when you feel differently about your career. And that's not to say that you can't start and stop. It is really important that females especially understand that taking time off to be with your family is okay.
Nobody's going to take as much of an interest in your career as you do and as you should. You really need to own your career and all the decisions that you make along the way.
Piece of advice that I always share, whether it's a new team member or somebody who's coming to talk to me about their career progression, or maybe in a year-end career review, which is to always have impact. So no matter what role you're in, whether you have a leadership title like capital L, a small l, it doesn't matter. If you really focus on how can you have impact, how can you leave that role better than you found it, how can you leave the project better than you found it, how can you help your team improve and be more effective together, by always focusing on the impact you're having in every initiative, project, or role, you will grow as an individual, and you will be noticed and identified as a leader who's ready for advancement.
I found that inspiration can come from anywhere. And if I stay open to all the women that I'm interacting with in whatever context, that I'm having these incredible moments and experiences with so many of them. And it might be somebody that I'm interacting with in a store, or I'm purchasing something. It might be somebody that I meet on the bus. It might be another executive at work, but staying open to what they're bringing and their perspective, and really taking the time to listen and just have a conversation with people. It's incredible how many really special moments and insights come from just creating a moment of space with whoever I'm meeting, and allowing them to kind of be in their humanity with me in that moment. And funny things happen, intimate moments happen, and I find that extremely enriching, as well as sometimes just really insightful in whatever I'm dealing with in my life in that moment.
And I think it's really important that, you know, everyone's going to have a different opinion, and you really have to believe in yourself and your capabilities. And, you know, again, you know, work hard, but don't let others define what you can and can't do. I think you really have to have that self-awareness and be true to yourself.
So whether you're in a meeting, you're the only female in the meeting, whether you're in a meeting with a big group of people, whatever it may be, you need your voice to be heard. You have to remember that your point of view is important, will add to the discussion, and you need to speak up and have your voice heard.
Sit at the table. So as women, if there's like a company-wide meeting, for example, and everyone's gathering in the boardroom, as women, we tend to sit up, stand up at the sides. But remember, you were invited to that meeting because your opinion and your thoughts are important, and they want to hear you. So sit at the table, let them hear you.
I find that when I'm preparing for tough conversations or meetings, I like to mentally prepare myself first and really think through what I want to, the point that I'd like to get through. And I also practice it. I practice actually, the questions or the answers. I practice it with my husband, with my friends. And I think the key thing to remember is to be confident in yourself and stand your ground. Confidence is key when you're dealing with men in general that you may feel intimidated by.
A friend told me when I was applying for a very senior role that if you don't apply, then you don't get to criticize the person that gets the role. And that encouraged me to actually move forward and put my application in, and I actually got the role.
And a couple of the gals that I work with were both like, well, Heather, why aren't you going for that job? And it was like that instant moment of like, why am I not going for that job? And if it hadn't been for those two women, I'm not actually sure that I'd be sitting here talking to you as a CEO, because it put a total twist on what I was thinking. And I just think women, I'm a clearly an example of that. We're bad for not thinking that we're ready. And at the end of the day, I think actually we're, in a lot of cases, much more ready than many men are, but we just don't actually think in the same way.